Hi, I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good morning. Again, this is Jonathan Small, host of All About You. This program is broadcast every week at AccessTV.org studios in downtown Hartford. And this show is designed to give the guests a chance to give their life story, or occasionally we get into a particular topic or issue. This morning I have a very special guest. He is the recently appointed Deputy Attorney General here in Connecticut, Perry Zinn Rowthorn. Good morning, Attorney General. Deputy Attorney General,
actually. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's no problem.
It's nice to see you.
Okay. Could you kind of let people know exactly where did your life got started at?
Sure. Well, I've been, as you point out, Jonathan, with the Attorney General's office for, currently I'm Deputy Attorney General. I've been with the office for 14 years. Mm-hmm. Before that, I was in private practice of law in New Haven at the law firm of Jacobs, Grudberg, Belt and Dow. Before that, I was a law clerk here in Hartford to a federal district court judge named Robert Shotney. Mm-hmm. And before that, I was at UConn Law School. And I'm also a graduate of UConn, undergraduate in Storrs. I grew up in Hamden. Mm-hmm. I live currently in West Hartford with my wife, who is a school administrator, and we have 3 children.
Okay, so you've kind of been a lifelong Connecticut resident your entire life?
Actually, I was born in England,
okay.
But I spent all of 9 months in England and then moved to New York City, where I lived for 5 years, and then from that point on, a Connecticut resident.
Well, what was it like growing up in Connecticut as a child?
You know, I loved it. I grew up in Hamden with, I have 2 siblings who are close to me in age. My father was a professor at the Yale Divinity School. My mother is a writer. And we had a very nice family life, and we enjoyed living in Hamden. I went to Hamden High School, public schools all the way through. And feel very blessed to have grown up in Connecticut.
Okay. At what age did you decide that you kind of wanted to go into the direction of becoming an attorney?
That's a great question. I went a little bit later than most of my peers in law school. I started law school at the age of 26. Mm-hmm. I had been teaching. In fact, I was teaching in France at a public high school in France. Then working before that in the New Haven public school system. Mm-hmm. As a long-term substitute teacher. And then while living in France, made the decision to attend law school, and came back to this country and applied to and started at UConn Law.
Well, what was it like, number one, living in France, and how long did you actually live in France?
My now wife, she was then my fiance, lived in a very tiny little apartment in the middle of Paris. It was very romantic. Mm-hmm. Tiny, and I'm 6'5". There were most of the apartment I couldn't stand up straight in. It was an 8th-floor walk-up, but we had a view across Paris. I was, as I mentioned, teaching. My wife was doing a degree in English, in French language and civilization, and we had a great time. Mm-hmm. And it was quite an adventure, but it wasn't a career. So we made the decision to come back, and she started her education career, and I started my path in law school. Her first year teaching was my first year in law school. Okay.
What actually made you decide that you wanted to become an attorney?
Well, that's a great question. I was very interested in social justice issues, in fairness and law. It appeared to me then, and has always appeared to me, and is a mechanism for advancing fairness and justice and equality. Mm-hmm.
Now, when you graduated from the University of Connecticut Law School, what was your first position after that time period?
I was lucky to be hired as a law clerk to Judge Shotney, who at the time was a district court judge. He still is actually a district court judge here in Hartford. He became the chief judge of the district, but that was after I worked for him. So I worked as law clerks do, assisting the judge in drafting opinions and handling cases, and it was a great experience. This was a trial court level clerkship, so great experience to watch lawyers try cases on behalf of their clients, and really instilled in me a desire to want to get into the courtroom.
Okay. So most people have the perception that attorneys are all rich and it's a glamorous occupation. Is it a little bit more to it than just that?
If only, right?
Okay.
It is more to it than that, and certainly there are attorneys who do very well for themselves, and then there are attorneys who don't. There are a lot of attorneys, so there's doing a lot of different things, so there is quite a wide spectrum of experiences that attorneys have. But for me, and certainly for the colleagues that I work with at the Attorney General's office, I think we're motivated by the opportunity to work hard on behalf of the people of the state of Connecticut, and that gives us great satisfaction.
Okay. Now, at what point did you become working in the Attorney General's office? At what stage or what time period did that actually take place?
Relatively early in my career. It was 1999. Attorney General, at the time, Blumenthal, hired me to work on consumer protection cases. We have an office our main office is here on Elm Street, but at that time I was working over in Mackenzie Hall, right next to the UConn Law Campus, if you know where that is.
Yes.
And I worked doing consumer protection cases for, excuse me, I'm struggling with a little bit of a cold, for a little over a year. And then from there I transferred to our public safety division, which represents the state police and the Department of Correction and some other agencies. And then had some other moves within the office from there.
Well, did you enjoy those different types of jobs that you had when you got started in this business?
Yeah, I really did. In fact, I think if you had asked me in 1999 whether, flash forward to 2013, I would still be working in the Attorney General's office, I probably would have said no. But it has been such a great place to work. The work has been consistently interesting and important. My first work in the office was, as I mentioned, doing consumer protection cases, and that's obviously important, protecting Connecticut residents from unfair or deceptive business practices. My next work in the office was more of a trial lawyer position, primarily defending state employees, in that instance state police officers and correction officers from lawsuits which are an occupational hazard in those professions. Very busy law practice, but a very active and interesting practice, and for anyone who wants to be in court trying cases, that was a great position.
Now, you say you're very busy. Do you get a chance to spend a lot of time with your family, or is your job such a demanding job that it takes a lot of your time away from your family?
Well, that's a great question, and one of the benefits of public service is that we're able to focus on the work that we have, but we don't have the kind of business pressures that force some private attorneys to work on business development matters. For example, in the evenings or weekends, I'm engaged actively in professional organizations, but it's been a job that has provided me the ability to have family and work balance. Not to say that there haven't been times when there's been a trial or a brief due that the hours can get a little crazy, but overall it's been allowed me to have a good balance in my life.
Now, the Attorney General's office, that is only one office that's located here in the capital city of Hartford, or do you have more than one office throughout the state for the Attorney General's office?
That's a great question. The vast majority of our 210 attorneys are located here in Hartford. Both here on Elm Street is our main office, where the Attorney General's office is, and my office. But also at Mackenzie Hall by the law school campus, we have 3 of our departments: child protection, consumer protection, and public safety, housed in that office. And then we have a few attorneys, very few attorneys, stationed at various places throughout the state. We have a couple up at Yukon Stores, we have a couple out at the health center in Farmington, and we have some child protection attorneys throughout the state. Bridgeport, Waterbury, for example, and some other places, but the bulk of our staff is here in Hartford.
Okay. Do you have to at times interact with state government, like with the governors or the legislators, or do you work kind of just separately from those part of the Capitol?
That's a terrific question. We are separate and independent. The Attorney General is elected every 4 years independently of the governor and other state officials, but we represent state government, so including the governor's office and the legislature if there are legal issues or litigation that arises. And we therefore work very closely with our partners in state government, and we're proud to say we have a very good relationship with the governor's office and the various agencies and offices of the state of Connecticut.
Okay. Now, you were just recently appointed by the Attorney General, George Jepson, as the Deputy Attorney General. What was that like when you got that phone call or that notification?
Well, that's a great question. It was a real honor and a thrill for somebody who has devoted most of his career to the office. It was a terrific piece of news to receive, but very humbling at the same time for a couple of reasons. One is my predecessor, Nora Danahy, was such a terrific deputy, and so there was a great sense of responsibility to continue her good work, but also because I know how great and hardworking and talented our staff is, and it's a terrific responsibility, a very humbling responsibility to assume a leadership role and to assist really them in their work. And of course the Attorney General is a great Attorney General and a very inspiring leader. And so I was just honored and grateful to have the opportunity to assist his work.
Now, as an appointee, a Deputy Attorney General, how long is your current position? Like, you have to last as long as the Attorney General is the Attorney General? I mean, what's the time span for your position that you have?
Well, I serve at the pleasure of the Attorney General, so it is as long as he's willing to have me.
Okay.
But there are elections, so I'm in the unclassified state service, so I don't have civil service protection in my position. So either this Attorney General or a next Attorney General has the liberty to select whoever he chooses or she chooses as Deputy Attorney General.
Now, as Deputy Attorney General, if anything was to happen to the Attorney General, like the Vice President and the President, would you be the next position? Would you be in line to take over as the Attorney General?
Well, that's a good question. By statute, the Deputy Attorney General serves in the place of the Attorney General if the Attorney General becomes unavailable to serve for whatever reason.
Oh, okay. Now, what is actually the criteria of the Deputy Attorney General?
Well, the Deputy Attorney General doesn't have separate criteria listed for his position in the statute. Our statute that governs our office is 3125. But the Deputy Attorney General needs to be able to serve as Attorney General, so therefore he has to be, or she has to be, a licensed attorney practicing law in Connecticut for 10 years.
Okay.
Which I have those qualifications, but that is essentially what are the parameters.
Do you work directly with the Attorney General, or do you work kind of separately from him?
Well, I work closely with the Attorney General, advancing his priorities in the office. The way we are structured, there is obviously one Attorney General and then one deputy, and then we have 4 associate attorneys general who each have an area of responsibility over the management of the office, and we have 14 department heads, each in a separate subject area, and those 14 department heads have varying numbers of attorneys in the office, but for a total of 210 attorneys. So I work closely with both with the Attorney General and then with the Associate Attorneys General, and then on occasion with individual attorneys either at the department head level or the Assistant Attorney General level.
Oh, okay. Well, Deputy Attorney General, that's going to actually have to be your last words for this particular show. I had enjoyed having you on this morning as my guest, and I think you have a very important position that I think people need to know more about. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Again, this is Jonathan Small, host of All About You. I had enjoyed doing this program this morning. This show can be seen on accesstv.org network. And as I say every single week to people out there, have a very blessed day and keep the faith. Thank you.